It's time for episode 4 of the series. I'm going to continue talking about the contradictions, things like that. So to preface this, one of other ways that cults like to destroy your sense of worthiness is by giving you these super high standards that are unobtainable, and they also self-sabotage you so that way you don't attain them, and then they also gaslight you, saying that it's your fault if you can't do it. Alright? And here's another thing I want to mention. Your idealizations of how things should or should not, or things should or should not be, are not the reality. These are just concepts. These are just ideas that you have. This does not mean it's your reality. So how does this play into judgment? Well, we have these expectations. We get taught with how to react to certain things. We get triggered by certain things that are, not ideal. And we do this to ourselves, especially when our worthiness is in question. All right? This is where we get the inner critic that tells us what we should or should not be doing sometimes, but usually this inner critic is not helpful. It's more condescending and uncompassionate and critical to the point where it doesn't help you at all. It just crushes you even more. And because you're so vulnerable and you have so much integrity, you really start to believe it and you really start to feel it. So this sets yourself up for unreasonable expectations, and this also sets you up for constant judgments that you're making. And when you're in the mindset of judgment, there's no unconditional love. There's no compassion. You're not nice to yourself at all when you are judgmental. And you can't be grateful. You can't be grateful for anything. You can't even be grateful for yourself. You can't even see yourself or see the good that's in you. Or give yourself a break because you've been through a lot. That's not what you think when you're in this mindset. And they use this to divide us even further. There's this big duality that religion likes to pull upon us people. Religion likes to tell us sometimes, or the cult that I was in, that the real world doesn't have virtues and values, that the real world is corrupt and it's evil, and they don't care about you and they're godless, and the real world has no connection to divinity whatsoever, and that we have to be religious as fuck, and that we have to go to church all the time, and we have to read our scriptures all the time, and we have to indoctrinate ourselves. Otherwise, the sinful world is going to get to us. Otherwise, the quote-unquote sinful programming in the world is going to get to us. And if you've seen, some Christian propaganda that I've seen, they're scared of everything. They're scared of the world. They're scared of things they don't even understand. And they're scared of spirituality, and they demonize a whole bunch of shit that is really unnecessary and just really strange. But especially spirituality. And I understand that, because if people were to get into spirituality, or at least the foundational shadow aspect of what spirituality is truly rooted in, because if you do spirituality without shadow work, then it's bullshit. Okay? And it's just full of hot air and concepts and ideas. They don't want people to go into those things because it threatens the foundation of the religion surviving in the first place, because it's all rooted in ego. And if people started to become more of their shadow and their ego and things like that, they might make a connection here that they're having a lot of fear because of their religious beliefs. They might make the connection that the reason why it's so hard for them to change is because they're judging themselves so hardly. They might make the connection that the reason why they don't accept themselves is because of the religious propaganda that they've been through. Etc. The 6 ego values, I already mentioned them. Okay. So they demonize things like spirituality, yoga, meditation, even some stuff that doesn't really make sense, but they'll create some kind of narrative, cherry picking scriptures and their egotistical interpretations of such things. They don't even have that connection to divinity, because while they are interpreting things, here's another aspect of interpretation. We interpret things through a filter, and that filter is going by our ego, right? And the current beliefs in whatever paradigm we are in. And I mentioned this before, I think in my first video, that there's a difference between the facts and the interpretations of the facts. There's a difference between the experience and the interpretation of your experience. And they don't even want you to think for yourself. And this is also one of the more stinky ways they prevent you from thinking more freely, is that they program you with these idealizations, with this fear, with this demonization. And it's so stupid, because they don't like demons, yet they demonize everything. And they say things like God hasn't given us the spirit of fear, and yet everyone is so fucking scared. And people are scared of themselves. They're scared of their shadowy aspects. They're scared of their sin, and sin is considered so taboo. And so, you know, everyone goes to church and it's a toxic positivity environment, but no one's going to be real and talk about their own sin. But people who do shadow work do. They talk about the taboo stuff. It's not all, you know, love and light, airy fairy. That's what grounded spirituality is like. It's just all toxic positivity and ego boosting, and being obsessed with your spiritual gifts, or being obsessed that you're a starseed, or being obsessed because you make money with spirituality, or some kind of like surface level egotistical, you know, version of spirituality that's just incomplete, to say the least. But even that in of itself can be abusive and also culty as well. Okay, so just know that we have idealizations, and please do not let that make it hard for you to accept things as they are. In my time of trying to improve myself, I was very impatient, because the judgments, the idealizations, and the things of how I thought things should or should be, how I should or shouldn't be, was causing me to not accept myself and be very impatient with myself, because I just wanted to get better, and I just wanted to improve, and I didn't want to stay in a sinful state. So let me give you another example. Just another simple example. You know how I mentioned earlier about how they like to demonize the outside world? There was this quote that they would say often in my religion: be in the world, but not of the world. All right? And they really wanted us, especially the youth, especially, because I was 13 when I converted, and even as I became 18, there were some adult classes, because you change a little bit for the classes or the information you have depending on your age in Mormonism, right? And I didn't really spend too much time in those adult classes because my anxiety and everything else was just through the roof, and I literally could not focus to save my life. Like, I would sit there and I'd just be so nervous and so scared and so alone that, like, I can't even pay attention. Like, the classes would be like an hour long each, and I'm just kind of like, I didn't learn anything. Like, I was just so like overcome with just my own shadows emotionally and everything. It just wasn't possible for me, and that made me feel way worse, because I was like wasting my time trying to do something to make me feel better, right? But especially for the youth, they really want us to practice our values, our religious values out there in the real world. That is their way of saying, you know, be in the world but not of the world, right? So there were certain rules. So here are some of the rules in Mormonism. I'm going to remember off the top of my head because I forgot a lot of it because I chose to forget all this shit. And I threw out all my scriptures, and I threw out all everything. You know, I graduated from seminary. I threw that out. It's in the trash somewhere. Because I want to have absolutely nothing to do with this religion. All right. So when it came down to me in high school, which I was attending seminary at the time, which I already mentioned is like daily religious indoctrination right before you go to school. So the rules. We could not speak bad language. All right. Men and women have a certain dress codes and dress rules, but of course for the women there's way more rules than for the men. All right. The type of music we listen to, can't listen to music with bad language. That's considered no. Movies and things like that, we had rules. Don't watch anything rated R, which is absolutely stupid, because if the Bible were to be a movie, that movie would be rated R. It's just another funny contradiction, right? So we had to be very careful with like any form of anything in the world that we consume, because we're taught that it's going to corrupt us, right? Another thing is that we were taught to we have certain rules for what we can eat and drink, and they're pretty much arbitrary. They don't even there's not even a good reason. They don't even understand why they even have their rules. Like, for instance, Mormons can't drink coffee. They can't have green tea, and there's some other things. And you know, I was talking about this to a person, and they're like, "Why is that? That doesn't make sense." And it's like, you kind of Googled it, and it's like the answer just was really unsatisfying because they don't really know. So yeah, we don't really know. Some people make stuff up like, oh, it's the caffeine. Some people said, oh, Mormons can't have soda because it has caffeine, and that's not true, and that's not the reason. That's just something they made up, probably so that way it could convince people, you know, why we have these rules is to avoid caffeine, because caffeine is considered a drug, but that's actually not true. But a lot of Mormons have this misinterpretation that they can't have caffeine, and that is absolutely false. Another thing, when it comes to sexual purity, they basically just want us to be like little kids. Like, they don't want us to experience anything sexual, at all, unless it's marriage, which there's issues with that. They teach abstinence only type of thing, and there's research on this, and that actually doesn't work. And we already know, you know, anything in sexual is incredibly taboo, and it's heavily judged in religion. And I already talked to you about the karma that comes when you judge, right? And even if they do succeed, and indoctrinating you to be scared of anything sexual, you will be a very scared individual. Very scared individual of these aspects of yourself. which I can relate to. But anyway, moving on the list. Yeah, we're also taught to give service and to help people, and we're also taught to convert other people, right? There was a lesson in seminary that really stuck with me one time, and it was in the Old Testament. In Mormonism seminary, we study a different book each year, right? So there's 4 years in high school. So depending on what time you join seminary, you may get these orders of books that you study in seminary in a different order. For me, it was Doctrine and Covenants, then it was the Book of Mormon, then it was the Old Testament, and then it was the New Testament, and then after that I graduate. There was a lesson that I had in seminary in the Old Testament, and it's going to be hard for me to describe it in detail, but I can basically say, like, not exactly, but to the same effect. So apparently, I guess in the Old Testament, there's these groups of people, and then there's these other groups of people. And then God says, stay away from them because they're evil and they're wicked, and stay away from the woman especially. Right? Don't marry weird women, basically. They're going to fuck you up type of thing. And, you know, their culture is bad, and this and that. And, you know, you need to shield yourself, protect yourself from the culture, because the culture is not in alignment with what I, God, say is allowed. Right? And there's probably several times like that, and it's like typically rooted in racism, because it's a group of culture, and then there's the race that has the culture there, and there's different types of people, and, you know, this and that. I'm pretty sure that's very common. I'm trying my best to remember off the top of my head, but I think that's something that's, if anyone remembers, I'm pretty sure that's a thing that came up a few times in the Old Testament. There was I wouldn't say a parable, but more like a metaphor that my seminary teacher was teaching, and she was using this metaphor of chocolate cake for sin, right? And it was basically describing being in the world and seeing in the culture how, quote unquote, sin is glorified, right? And so she's using this kind of made up story about people who aren't supposed to eat chocolate cake. It's a made up story, okay? But, you know, they will go out in the world and they will listen to music about chocolate cake. They will see pictures and commercials about chocolate cake. There will be people talking about chocolate cake, but they think it's fine. They think it's fine because they're not actually eating chocolate cake, right? They're not actually doing anything with the chocolate cake, right? And you talk about, you know, celebrities that eat chocolate cake, and you know, how everyone else around them, you know, might do that, right? But they don't do that because they're good, so they don't eat chocolate cake, right? It's a metaphor for sin. And it was basically telling us that we live in the world and there's sinful stuff all around us, but just because you think that you can be around these things, that it won't affect you. You know, you think that if you don't listen, you think if you listen to music about sin or whatever it is you don't believe, or just anything that could really offend the religion, really, that we're taught, you know, that affects you. And just because you're not doing those things or you're not believing in those things doesn't mean that it's safe, is basically what they're telling us, right? So, so for instance, if there was music, bad words in it, no, we can't listen to it. If there was music, if they're, you know, talking about sex, don't listen to it. If there's music and, you know, there's, you know, words like the devil or whatever, it's like, no, you can't listen to that, right? So it's very much like, you just have to indoctrinate yourself further, is basically what they're saying, to the point where you become so sheltered that you are not allowed to participate in the culture of the world or the music of the world or other ideas or other beliefs, and that if those things come up in your reality, that you have to block them out, right? This made it especially difficult to make friends in my life. And I was already having a really hard time making friends in my life because I couldn't express myself. And I had a lot of pain, and I didn't have anyone to help me, and I was really alone and unsupported and had family troubles at home, right? I had issues with school, and I was working really hard one time. I actually don't really like school, but I always did my best, and I always cared more than I really did, because my father really wanted me to. And I didn't know what I wanted to be or what I wanted to grow up in. And so I just kind of did a whole bunch of everything, because if an opportunity did come up, you know, I would have at least some, you know, knowledge or discipline to deal with that, right? But I really overworked myself too bad. And I was going to seminary at the time, so my freshman year of high school, I would get up really early morning to go to seminary. But those who know me know I have like the worst time sleeping. So I'd wake up like around something 4:30 or something, which a.m., right? Which I know is crazy. I didn't know how to take care of my hair back then, which led to a lot of problems because I always had to catch my hair in a hairstyle that wouldn't allow my hair to get so frizzy. It's a shame. It's a shame, but those who have curly hair know how difficult it is to take care of. And I'm so grateful now that I figured it out, but I grew up not knowing how to take care of it. And it was a big insecurity of mine because I was like one of the only few people with curly hair. And I don't know if maybe some other females can relate, but you know, having a bad hair day makes you scared of what people are going to say to you and make fun of you, and people have. They made fun of me. Regardless, you know, if it was unfrizzy or if it was frizzy or whatever, it's because I always wore the same hairstyle because it would prevent the frizz, or it just braid my hair a lot, and it would be like all the time every day because that's all I knew how to do. So that's what I did. I braided my hair. Right? And so I had to do my hair every day, every morning, and I have a lot of hair, right? So it takes a long ass time for me to get my hair ready. And those who, you know, have curly hair know that you absolutely cannot brush your hair if it's not wet. So I'd always have to take a shower and wash my hair, brush my hair, and then try to also dry my hair, and then also got to, you know, get dressed for seminary, because right after seminary I have to go to school. Literally right after that. So I have to get my backpack. I have to, you know, bring my seminary, my religious bag with my scriptures in it. I had to get ready for school. I had to have my homework ready. I have to, you know, do all these things. I had to do this every day, right? And the school that I was attending was very fucked up because I had signed up for a school that really took itself too fucking seriously. And they overworked all of us in that system. And I was abused in that system too with teachers. Just, I don't know what it is about teachers, but they're so full of shit and they're so prideful, and they don't, like, oh my God. I guess there's a lot of pressure on them too, but I did not get along with my teachers because I always fell asleep in class. And rarely did I fall asleep in seminary. Right? So in this special school, I get college credit in high school. So I am actually a college student while also simultaneously being a freshman in high school. So that way, by the time I graduate high school, I have enough college credits, and I think I get an associate's degree as well as a high school diploma. But they were really, really working me off. They were really, and it wasn't just me, you know, or that I was dumb or anything. It's just that, like, they really gave us too much fucking homework. They really did. And lots of people were complaining. Lots of people were getting anxiety. Lots of people were stressing out because of the the education system and its indoctrination telling us that education is your future and you need to always do your homework and everything matters and everything matters and everything matters, that type of thing. And you have to really care and you have to really work hard and you have to really get your priorities straight and you have to really get your time management. So we're fucking high school students, and they're scaring us to death. And my teachers would always have these long ass lectures. You know, if people didn't turn in their homework, they'll like talk about how if you don't turn out, I know it sounds dramatic, but this is basically what they're doing. Is like, they'll talk about how if you don't do your homework, you're going to end up poor, hungry, and alone. Like they really make it so dramatic, and like they're trying to like scare us straight or something, or I don't know. Right. But they gave me way too much fucking homework. And then I also had to go to seminary. Also, I couldn't sleep. And sometimes I had to go to early morning tutoring, and then after school tutoring. So then I gotta go to seminary, I gotta go to morning tutoring, I gotta do a whole bunch of fucking homework in regular school, and then I gotta go, after school to do tutoring, and then I also have homework for seminary as well, and I can't fucking sleep to save my life. All the while, I am simultaneously being indoctrinated with these crazy beliefs that make me want to kill myself. It was a very difficult time in my life. And after that freshman year, I left, and they lied to me. They said I had to stay in that education system. They actually lied to me. They didn't want people to leave because they were trying to prove something. The school was trying to prove something. They had some kind of pride, and they didn't want people to leave because it made them look bad. I didn't find out till like way after the fact that I could have left, but I was able to leave my second year. I just couldn't do it, and honestly, it wasn't worth it. And it stresses me out to this day because I still have some trauma from that and abuse, and of course I was bullied too in the schooling system. It didn't help that my teachers were unsympathetic as fuck, and they really scared me, and I was really scared of them too, because of their criticism. And, trying to ask for help or trying to get advice, they just gaslight us. They gaslight the whole class. Like our school counselor, gave us this PSA in the middle of class saying that you guys are stressed out because you guys have terrible time management. Some of us have band after school. Some of us have athletics after school. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, we also have to go home. We have to eat. We have to shower. We also have to have fun. We also want to play with our friends, and we also have like family things we need to do. Right. And that's happened to me before where it's like, Dad, can we go home? Because, I know we're spending time as a family and we're eating together and we're eating out, but I got to do my homework. Like I'm tired. It's like I've been up since 4:35 in the fucking a.m. Or probably even before that. I probably got like 2 to 3 or 4 hours of sleep, 6 if I was lucky. And I'm sleeping in every other one of my classes. And I don't know anything about myself. I don't know what I want to be or what I want to grow up to be. And I'm just feeling all this pressure, to excel in education, even though I don't give a fuck about education really that much. I'm not really that kind of person. I mean, there's some interesting things, and I tried my best to make it as interesting as possible kept a positive attitude, and my teachers loved me because I participated so much, right? But if anything, I'm more artsy, and even more so now, majority of my skills and talents are in spirituality, which doesn't really fare well with the education system, because they don't teach anything feminine. They only teach masculine, right? And even the way that they teach is just dumbing you down and throwing away your education and throwing away your intellect and your ability to critically think and your own creativity. And there's this huge competitiveness there, and also school drama and other people's ego bullshit that's in all these institutions. It's just done in a different way, but they're very similar. Yeah, anyway, I had a hard time making friends. and I was getting bullied a lot because I was sleeping in class. And I was actually cyberbullied, and I didn't recognize it at the time because I chose not to have social media because I saw what it was doing to people at a young, at a young age, and I decided not to participate in that. But then eventually I found out, like, while I'm sleeping in class, people are taking pictures of me and making fun of me. And I don't know how long that's been going on, but it's probably been going on, like, as soon as they could, honestly. Probably. And I'm grateful I did not have social media because I think I would have gotten, cyberbullied the fuck out of that. And I vaguely remember people asking me if I do have social media, people who don't even know me. And it's a very similar thing, because, like, I just have this reputation for just being made fun of. So, like, even people not even in my class know about me and laugh at me and things like that. Even some people, I don't know Spanish. Some people I don't even know in my grade level would, like, ask me if I know Spanish. And I'm stupid. I know why they're asking me if I know Spanish, so that way they can gossip about me in Spanish. And then because I don't know Spanish, they think I won't, notice it. But I notice it because I can read body language. And, I've been bullied my whole fucking life. You think I'm not going to notice when you're making fun of me? Like, pointing fingers, looking at me, and then looking back because I notice you, and then you start giggling. I know you're gossiping about me. Like, I know, like all this bullshit, And then, so now I'm having trouble with that. And then I'm having all this stress. But then when it came down to having friends, it's like, well, I can only have certain kinds of friends. And it's so stupid because Mormonism would be like, oh, no, we're accepting of all people and all cultures and this and that. And that's such bullshit because they really don't. They really don't. Because people who are not like us, they tell us to be scared of them. People who are not like us tell us that they're going to bring us down, that they're going to make us sinful, that they're going to hurt us, or, that if we do fall into that sin, it's because of the decisions that we made by being friends with different kinds of people. And then this is what's also stupid is that because we get so triggered and we get so offended and we are also so scared of falling into sin that when we do have friends that cuss, we always have to correct them and tell them not to cuss. And they hate that. And some people are more accepting of that, and some of them, if you tell them that, they'll just cuss at you even more because it's stupid and they know it's stupid, but some people tolerate it, right? And I didn't realize that, what that was like, with the roles reversed, and it's actually quite fucking annoying. So anyone who's had to, censor themselves, because of someone else, it's like, I understand what that's like. And I remember one time, there was this comedian I like to watch on YouTube, Julian Smith. And I really liked his comedy because he didn't have any bad language, which was pretty much in alignment with the rules of Mormonism. And then he was on hiatus for a really long time. And then he came back and he said a bad word. And then everyone flipped, and he was getting a lot of criticism and backlash because of that. He never really claimed to be Christian. I think he's atheist. Right? It's just his comedy appealed to a lot of Christians because he did not use bad language in his comedy. And then he starts to talk about these things and defend himself, and he talks about the history of where bad language came from. It came from racism and classism. It's so interesting how we keep up with these rules and we completely lose sight of where they came from or why we have them or where they even originated, right? It just became part of the culture. So I'm not saying that anyone, who refuses to speak bad words is racist, but, like, that's where it originated, which means, like, what does it actually mean? Like, what is actually the issue? What is actually the trouble with saying bad language? Because the people who did have trouble with bad language way back then in history, they had trouble with it because they wanted to separate themselves from the poor people that were of a certain race. So, in a way to build up their pride and ego, they decided not to use words that they say. So words like ass and shit and things like that. because they were rich and they were of a, in their egotistical mind, they believed they were a superior race. And so that was one of the ways that they did that. And actually a lot of taboos in history, I mean, that we're doing in modern times is because a lot of it has to do with an origin of racism, classism, or sexism even, right? And just people being scared of other people's culture. And that's something not a lot of people know. And of course, they won't tell us that. They won't tell us that in Mormonism. Yep, they won't tell you that. Because it actually starts to get you to start thinking. Right? And the stupid thing is that I would be hypocritical. And while I tell my friends not to cuss, I would listen to music that had cussing in it. Or I would watch videos with cussing in it. And sometimes my friends would like show me, hey, look at this funny YouTube video. I was like, no, I can't. It's got cuss words. Right? But then secretly I'll like watch my own thing with its own cuss words and stuff. And it's like, you know, if you're having to hide yourself, if you're having to hide yourself and what you really want to do, you know, it's because you're scared of what other people, you know, will think. And this is why there was lots of social pressure, because we were taught that we should tell everyone that we're Mormon, and that we should tell everyone about how great it is, and we should tell everyone what we believe. Big mistake on my part. I did not recognize at the time that people judge religious people, which makes sense because as a religious person, I was judging non-religious people. So sometimes people would like to trigger religious people on purpose because they think it's funny, or they don't want to be friends with you because they think you're a religious nutcase, which I understand because I actually met one. And yeah, and after a while, I was experiencing the backlash of that, and I decided not to tell people anymore about myself or about my religion, because if there was anything I wanted to do or anything I wanted to be and be myself, you know, someone would point out the hypocrisy that I'm doing, and I didn't want that because that was uncomfortable, right? Because when you tell people, you know, your values or your religions and your beliefs, then they want to hold you up to them, because I don't necessarily think it's because they want to tell you you're hypocritical, but maybe they think they're helping you or they're trying to be supportive of you. Right. This is another reason why in Mormonism we have event groups in the weekends. Right. So Wednesday was, I think, called Mutual Day. So like after school, we all the Mormons. So like for me, I'd be all the Mormon youth that were females, and we all get together and we do activities. We do fun things. And it's a way to keep ourselves accountable for not sinning. That way we're doing positive, wholesome things, so that we are less likely to do sinful stuff, right? And because we're around people who believe like us and act like us, there's a higher chance that we're not going to do any fucked up shit. But anyway, fucked up shit still happens anyway. But that's actually one of the reasons why it's set up like this. And it's also to indoctrinate you more and to suffocate your individuality even more, because not only are you doing this yourself with the doctrines and the rules, but now you have to deal with other people's perceptions of you, right? And then you want to be alone so that way you can actually be yourself. But then you'll also feel bad about it because you're taught to judge sin, and you're taught to feel bad for being yourself and this and that. So just, you know, yeah. And this is also very difficult for me, because when I was going through a very hard time in abuse, you know, one of my friends that I kind of got close to, you know, I'd always be super sad and super depressed, and I couldn't tell him what was going on and what was happening, because the nature of why I was so sad and going through a hard time was very taboo. And honestly, I think if I wasn't so scared, I probably would have gotten help from one of my friends who could, you know, help me think clearly, help me realize how the religion was hurting me. And I think in some cases, you know, sometimes the topic of religion did come up, and they did talk to me about some stuff, but I was faithful, and I guess I listened. But this didn't really cause me to change and start to deconvert and deconstruct. I had to go through much more pain for me to deal with that, right? So remember how I mentioned the 6 ego values? You're not really going to change until all of these things, or at least one of these things, is so bad enough that you literally, you know, need to change, because that's what I call rock bottom, which is what they want you to do, is hit rock bottom, so that way you become sinful, right? And then you need them. That's what they tell you. So, but anyway, going back, it was really hard for me to make friends. And they were telling us about how we appreciate, how we love people, and it's okay to be with other people in different cultures, but it's really fucked up and they really don't. Let alone, it's the only people I could have possibly been friends with were people in my own religion, you know, because they would be the only people who understood, or the only people that would not have an issue with our Mormon beliefs, right? But it's so crazy, because it's like, it's a contradiction. It's an obvious contradiction that made it so hard for me to like figure this shit out, right? And then so I just decided to, little by little over time, to just not make it such a big deal, so that way I could actually socialize in some capacity with people. But in the cases where my friends kind of already knew, you know, I still had to uphold that social pressure to conform, even amongst people, you know, who don't think like me, because I gave them the expectation that this is how I should be treated. It's no different than how I'm treating myself, and I projected onto them, and they didn't deserve that, but I just didn't know better at the time. And I forgive myself for that, of course, as well. So this video is already long. I'm going to make another video where I go more into a deeper topic that's more painful. But I'm going to separate it from this video, so that way, you know, you get the chapter of what this is talking about, right? You know, maybe some of you can relate on the social pressure to conform. There's a social pressure. We're also taught, you know, not to look at certain things or look at certain knowledge, because we could lose our faith, which is also information control, right? And they have emotional control. Of course, they do this in other ways with evil and hurtful doctrines to keep you stuck there. But one of the main ways they do fuck you up emotionally is by destroying your 6 ego values, to the point where it's unconscious self-annihilation from being so divided from within, and that hurts you incredibly emotionally, and I would know. And I'll go more into the details of that later. Right? And I forgot what the other one was. There's social, emotional, intellectual. I forgot what the other one was. I think physical control, or sexual control. It's like with the way that you dress, and things like that, and how you express yourself and your creativity. I can't remember the other one exactly. But those who are familiar with, I forgot what it's called. It's by, I think if you look up Sam Hassan, he has done some work in identifying cults, and he created this little graph where it's like information control, emotional control, information control, and another thing, and he goes down, you know, in the list of like the qualities that make this a cult and this particular type of abuse, right? To me, this is all just consciousness abuse, right? And it's no different than the other institutions that run this world. That's why everyone is so torn apart and divided, and we don't really get to grow, and everyone's hurting. And even more so than now, the younger generations are really having a hard time, because this world is absolutely bullshit, and everything's falling apart. And I totally relate to them. I totally get that. And I feel bad for them, because those are our future generations, and they're not going to get any help within the system, and many of them have given up already. if there was anything else I was going to say. Yeah, so I was just basically describing like the contradiction in how you live your daily life, your lack of your lack of being able to see things, you know, more fairly, and seeing yourself more compassionately. This adds up over time, and this hurts you over time. What else? I can't think of anything else right now, so I think that's it for this video. And the next video is going to be a more serious topic, and I'll probably make it right after this one, because I've healed a lot since those past 3 videos, and I actually feel more centered and confident that I can speak more. And that's thanks to everyone's support. So that's the end of this video. So I'll see you later.